Welcome to exploring the mystical side of life.
Hi, it is Linda Lang here from ThoughtChange.com, and I'm here today with Ron Carlson. Ron is a passionate intuitive. He's here to share with us tips and tricks for intuition, how he got started on this path, and how we can develop our own intuition. So, welcome, Ron.
I am so pleased to be here and so excited to be part of this conversation.
We are happy to have you, Ron. Let's start the conversation off by asking you how you got started on this path because you are an intuitive and that's your job, correct?
Well, that's right, but it wasn't always. My earliest human memory is from 2 years old. I was in my cot and I realized I was seeing shapes and colors in the energy worlds in my room. And already at 2, I knew that this was not something that I was supposed to even try to talk about. I remember being a toddler, running around playing, and shapes would come play with me. I grew up in the Midwest of the United States in a very conservative, buttoned up place in the 50s. People were not talking about energy. They weren't talking about auras, but I was already knowing and conscious that I was experiencing these things. I could see, I could feel things with my hands. As I got a little bit older, I could walk through a city neighborhood I've never been in with a resident and tell them what was going on in each of the houses, just like that. At that point, I actually wasn't sure that I wanted this. I actually wasn't sure yet that this was natural. So I came into this in a backwards kind of way. And then when I surrendered, early 30s, when I surrendered, the floodgates just opened, just absolutely opened in extraordinary ways.
I think that's probably pretty common for
Mm-hmm.
people that kind of have that spiritual awakening automatically that they're not really sure if they want to accept the gifts.
Yes. And at times I even wondered from old programming if I was nuts, if I was a little bit off the rails, right?
Yeah.
And it took working through that and appreciating what intuition and clairvoyance and knowings are. It's natural. Spend much more time working with people who want to get closer to what their why is, their purpose, and being open to and listening to guidance is a huge part of that, isn't it?
Oh, it's a huge part and something that's available to everyone, I think.
That's right.
Can we talk a little bit more about that, about how it's not just for a gifted few and
Uh,
how we can all start to develop and have access to information that's not maybe consciously available?
there are some people who seem to have a natural talent with clairvoyance or clairaudience or mediumship or general intuition. It is a natural faculty that we all have. And beginning to recognize that and remember, oh, I've had experiences when I was in the line at the grocery store and I was feeling creeped out about something coming up behind me, right? My
Exactly.
knowing systems were on the job, right?
I think a lot of people might have the experience of kind of knowing who's calling when the phone
That's right.
rings.
A starting point is talking to the person for them to begin to recognize these are not alien thought forms. They can step into and embrace and invite the knowing systems.
Exactly. And of course, here on Earth, we all have bodies, and
Yes.
our bodies are amazing communicators. So when we can learn how to tune into our body, we can get intuition through that pretty
Abs-
easily, I think.
Absolutely. For some people, what really starts opening that window is them giving themselves permission to be present, to be in the moment, to be still. Sometimes I'll invite a person to take a slice of orange and just savor it, close their eyes, let the juice be messy, and then just listen. What is the orange saying to your body? What's the orange saying? Right?
Yeah, because everything is communicating with us.
Yeah, that's right. The energy is all around. Some people watching this replay will notice how bright your etheric is.
Well, I'm just watching yours, actually.
Okay, folks, enjoy it. There's some etheric watching here.
Yeah, and I suppose we could probably say a little bit about that as well, because for those viewers who kind of haven't turned on the sense of psychic sight,
Mhm.
it's not that difficult.
There are a couple exercises in dimly lit rooms, and most people within 30 minutes can see another person's etheric. If they're getting still, they're becoming more present, they're giving themselves permission to experience this new thing.
And a little defocusing of the eyes kind of
That's right.
helps a little bit, opening up the peripheral
That
vision.
absolutely. This is not laser eye time.
Yeah, seeing energy is different than looking with your physical eyes and seeing very defined shapes. Although I would have to say, I have seen a few things that are so clear that it could have been manifested in 3D reality. So,
Yes, I have too. Usually for me, it's less distinct. Um, and my system up here gets the information, and then I've learned to translate it a bit more visually.
yeah, that can be actually a bit of a challenge when you do get your intuitive hits is having the conscious or logic understanding that goes with it. Like you might see
Mhm.
a symbol, but what does that symbol mean?
The first part is okay, I trust I'm getting information here. Please keep bringing me some more. And in realizing that our semi conscious is engaging with these energy worlds all the time. We taught it which pieces we wanted to bring into our consciousness, didn't we?
We do by our thoughts and our beliefs and where we
Yeah.
focus our attention.
Yeah. So the radio is there. The radio station, the source, nothing wrong with that. We're just needing to learn sometimes how to turn on the radio, like hit the on button to make it play.
And you can always fine tune it a little bit.
Absolutely.
So it's been my experience that most people somehow value clairvoyance over the other intuitive senses.
Hmm.
And I'd really like to encourage people to be open to however they get their messages,
Yes.
because I mean, I know some clairvoyant people that see symbols but they don't know what it means. They don't know what the
Right.
guidance is. But if you feel it and if you hear
Yeah.
it, it can be a little bit easier.
In being open, first of all. For me, sometimes I get an image. Often it is more of a feeling, and I'm reeling that in and letting it grow and expand. Sometimes it will be words, almost dictated, just like that I can hear as though they were spoken in my head.
But it's not your voice,
Mhm.
and the thoughts didn't originate in your mind. They just kind of pop in.
That's right. It's not like they came in through my ears. For me, the sense is that these things are percolating up almost out of the mists in the back of my head, and then creating more of a quilt-like picture. I think what you said about encouraging people to be open about what ways are going to be the ways for them to get their downloads and connect to source. Absolutely.
Just because it starts with one type of psychic sense doesn't mean it isn't going to shift and grow and more will come in.
Absolutely.
So, do you have any tips for the listeners who want to hone their intuitive skills?
Sure. We've talked about being present and giving ourselves permission for that, because the knowings come in through present time, when we are still and we've quieted some of the noise factory, right? If a person will do that for 3 to 5 minutes a day for a month, they will experience an extraordinary shift in knowings that they get, because their inner system is starting to go, oh, well, this wasn't just a flash in the pan. Oh, okay, they're going to give us space now. A second one that I find helps is for the person to be conscious about making a commitment, whether they want to call it affirmations or intentions, but the I am statements that are so powerful, and writing those in the present tense and weaving into them how developing or unlocking intuition is part of their purpose. Part of my purpose is in serving people and in helping them to find what the light has for them. Intuition is a big part of helping to serve that purpose, as an example. The third one is to practice softly.
I like that.
This is not a race. The person can start by just simple exercises like building energy in their hands, which helps them to build trust that they can communicate with the energy worlds. So I usually suggest simple things that are soft.
You said something or alluded to something a little bit earlier that I think is pretty important as well. And that is acknowledging when you do get those flashes of
Yeah,
intuition,
yeah,
because it just creates a momentum that you're open for more.
absolutely. That is so important. And it can be a small thing. Like, I was just thinking about Auntie and she's on the phone. And the more we acknowledge those, that's another way of saying to our semi-conscious system, we're listening. We really want this channel. We're listening.
And I think sometimes it takes a little bit to get used to how your messages come and what kind of symbols mean what.
Yes.
And, when you get a symbol or a message, maybe you're not going to fully understand it for a day or a week or a month or however long. It's kind of like dream interpretation when you have this dream and then after the fact you're like, oh my goodness, I dreamt this.
Yeah. It's extraordinary. And I don't understand it yet.
You do develop your own dictionary of symbols and what certain feelings mean or images. What would you suggest as a good defense against attracting those kind of lower frequency energies?
The absolute best is the person making space in their day to be with what for them is vibrating higher, rather than going into attack mode about the lower. The lower orders are just filled with stuff, but all the dark lower things in the world cannot even put out the light of one candle. So the person making dedicated space to do what for them brings them into joy and happiness and feeling the possibility sends all kinds of other things away. And second, it brings their own guides and helpers closer and nearby. And they're the posse, right? They're like, you're not messing with Linda. You're not messing with Ron.
I think that's perfect because it's win-win for one
Yeah,
thing. And I agree with you. If you're protecting yourself out of fear of what might happen, that in itself is low vibration.
it's attract through fear, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So I always tell my clients that ideally, you don't need to protect yourself, that your energy is so big and you carry so much light that anything just flows through you and doesn't get stuck on you.
That's right. If the person is going into a hostile work meeting, they can't imagine the glorious egg shape of the aura just flooded with sky blue on the inside of the aura and a layer of it on the outside edge of the aura, which will help them to feel peaceful and confident and to help things not get in.
I think too, it helps if the aura has sharp edges, like clearly defined edges, as compared to being a little bit fuzzy where things can kind of leak in and leak
Right,
out.
right. I've found that the more a person is giving space to their intuition, their knowings, exploring what practice works for them, and getting clearer themselves about what their purpose is.
I think intuition can be used for all kinds of things,
That's
it,
right.
from mundane things to finding a parking spot in a busy
Yes.
parking lot, or assistance with projects and relationship issues.
This, I think, is a really important point, Linda, that intuition isn't just for the temple. It is meant to be a functional part of our sensing all throughout the day.
I think we probably were a lot more intuitive in the history of mankind because it's kind of a psychic sense to help keep us safe and make choices that encourage our survival in challenging places. So it is definitely something people can make use of once they grow and develop their skills. And everyone has skills.
Everyone has skills, and advancing whatever the level is for a particular person and jump starting that helps them with the rest of their journey, because now they can be even more greatly connected to what their source is and get intelligence that's meant for them as well as for other people.
I know that my life would be very different if I did not follow my intuitive hunches and the guidance that I received. And I really like my life, so I'm grateful that I had the courage to follow. It can take courage sometimes, especially if in your environment, like you growing up, it wasn't conducive to the world of energy. It can take a little courage to follow sometimes.
That's right. And if a person starts with little things, it can be a hunch that if I continue driving to work the usual way, I'm going to hit a traffic block. So I'm just going to go over this way, and we'll see where it takes me. It can be things like that.
I love doing that actually, Ron. If I get lost when I'm driving, I have gotten unlost by just asking at a corner, do I turn right, left, or go straight, and find my way back. And it is amazing that you can navigate that.
You're giving yourself permission, you're trusting the guidance you're going to get, and you're doing soft practice. It's all right in there, right?
And that's a great way people can actually practice to go out and just ask their own guidance.
Have it be fun, not stressful. Have it be fun.
Yeah, spirit likes playing.
Oh, absolutely. And some guides are pranksters. They're jokesters, I found.
Do you think that depends on the person? Like if they have a sense of humor, their guides probably do?
I do think that. And I also think that the guides around you can shift over time as you grow. If you reach a point where what guide named Adam, let's say, has brought you what Adam could bring, then it may be time for a switch, and now you get, say, Susan.
So that actually brings up just a really interesting topic that we'll just touch on before we close. And speaking particularly of guides, everybody wants to channel Archangel Michael or Melchizedek, some huge,
Yes.
huge persona.
Tutankhamun, maybe, or
And yet there are Adams and Sues and Lisas and Teds that are amazing and very high vibration guides, but they just don't have the persona.
they weren't famous when they were physically living. What I'll say to people is that really what matters? Or is what matters whether that guide can connect to the directory of the universe? So then do I care how famous they were themselves? No, they can go connect to truth for me, right?
Exactly. They're given to you for a reason, or they come to you for a reason, and maybe they're the best guide for you at that time.
At that time, to be there with what your next steps are. And some of them are speed bumps sometimes.
And I don't think it means that you're less gifted or less loved or less worthy as someone who, say, channels Archangel Michael or some other big persona.
Absolutely not. And the Adam or the Susan may actually be talking to one of the big kahunas on your behalf. We just hadn't recognized the intermediary, right?
I love it. So it's been absolutely fascinating chatting with you today, Ron. Would you like to share your contact information with our listeners?
You can find me on Facebook if you look for the group Passionate Living. My website is becomeyourwhynow.com. And I'd love to hear from people. So they can email me too. The email is right on the website.
But you also have a little course coming up in January. Why don't you share that with our listeners?
I am so excited about this. It's called Jumpstart Your Intuition. And it's 5 days starting January 14th. It's free. And we are going to develop and tease out many of the themes that started popping up in our conversation today. How to practice being more present, how to write intentions, and how to softly practice. We're going to have an absolute blast. And that is going to happen in that Facebook group that I mentioned.
Wonderful. So if any of the listeners are interested in developing their intuitive faculties, I definitely would suggest contacting Ron and joining in his Facebook group for the training.
We're going to have a delicious time.
Fantastic. Thank you for being here, Ron. And thank you for listening to Exploring the Mystical Side of Life. If you enjoyed this podcast, please check out some of our other topics. Bye for now.